everyone, and welcome back to What's on My Bookshelf. And today I thought we'd go through some of my favorite ones that are really good for working your way through them. And you can see by one of these that this would be the kind of series here that you could work your way through most of these. And they're like artist books, different artists that I've followed. So I thought we would just kind of talk about each one of them and just do a little flip through and see if these are ones that you might like. Like slammed my little finger there. So one of my very favorite ones lately has been this creative abstract watercolor book by Kate Rebecca Leach. And she is the Esoldo design on Instagram. And this book, even though it's not very big, it might be like one of the smallest books like in my library, it is the most impactful. And it has the best ideas and the most lovely projects. And this book, just like the other ones, kind of start off with a little bit of information and some of the basics and what she's using in her different projects. And then it goes into different, look at there, blue and white. I'm telling you, we're going to get there. We're going to do a blue and white. Goes through techniques. And out of all the books that I've had, like this one's truly been a joy to work my way through it. It's the first one I've ever worked my way through. And just play and just create and do mindful exercises in my handmade art journal. And now I can go back and look at those, and I'm just delighted to see the works that I've created. And I would never create work from a book, say like this, and then put it out for sale. So I wouldn't recommend that you do that. These are not your original designs. When you're creating stuff like this, you are taking the inspiration and basically doing what I would consider a master study, where you're looking at a piece of art, whether it be an old master or a modern artist, and you're looking at how they create and maybe recreating a design that they've done, and then you are learning from those skills and techniques. So if you're replicating something, that's not your original design. But the reason why you would do a master study is for skill building, powers of observation, to take a look at what all goes into a piece, and just learning, you know, what the artist created and how they created it, and then take those favorite bits with you going forward. So not everything that you create or the exercises that you do will be things that you retain, but there are lots of pieces and parts of the things that we study that we'll definitely take forward with us in our work and turn them into techniques and creative things that are our own original pieces of art. So yeah, this has like the most lovely exercises and the steps to get to it, and then future ideas. And if you only buy one book this year, this one would be a fantastic one, especially for just skill building and giving you delight with something that you're done with in the end. So I love this one. It's just full of lovely projects. It's got some fun stuff in the back, similar titles. I may have to go back. Actually, we just looked at that one in another video. I don't know if I've got the color mixing recipes, but those are very fun. So yeah, this book, super delightful. Another book that I've recently gotten, Painting Calm, Connect to Nature Through the Art of Watercolor by Inga Device. I don't know. I'm definitely going to link everything below for you. I know I'm not saying all the names correctly. But this book is delightful for botanical kind of painting and just lovely painting that would be perfect in my handmade art journal. It talks about connecting with nature and not being doesn't have to be perfection. And just some fun inspiration and information to get started. And then she's got some basics here with the getting started. This is another thing I want to do. I want to have like a whole little series of painted art supplies. So the future project, different brushes, pressure exercises, other supplies, and then techniques. And then as we get past all the basics, then we get into color and color harmonies. Look how fun that is. That would totally be a great journal page. Creating color swatches. I do like color swatches. I used to not love doing those, but now I'm like all about color and texture, and so it actually is fun to swatch out and play with and color mix and just let this right here be your piece of art. I like color swatching art. Be inspired by nature and just some different explorations. And then further on, she talks about pressed stuff, repeating motifs and patterns, and static design versus dynamic. So just lots of good information, different foliage and how she paints it. Creating this piece, that's a lovely piece that would be fun to create. So it does go through getting started with that and then continuing. You've got the colors right up there. So some really fun exercises that I would actually enjoy working my way through the exercises of this book like I did the other book here. Because now I'm kind of interested in books that have fun projects that maybe I do want to work through. And even though, you know, I've done art since I was a kid, you never stop learning. Maybe somebody's figured out interesting things in a different way than what you already know. So I just never approach anything like I know it all. I'm always like, ooh, what could I create today? And where can we go? And what can I learn? And where will we end up? And I don't get stressed about it anymore. I used to get really mad at my table not being able to create whatever it was I envisioned. And then the photography I enjoyed so much because I could envision it exactly and I could set it up and I could create it exactly. But now I've come back to the art and I have learned to let go of the expectation of what I'm thinking in my mind versus what I end up creating with my hands. And that was hard to get through. I mean, I'm 51 this year, and that was a difficult place to get. Let go of the expectations and just create whatever you were meant to create that day. It might not be what you had in your mind, but just go with that flow. Anne Blockley, Watercolor Texture. This is another book I've had for a while because I went through how can I make textures in my watercolor textures that I was making to photograph and have for photography textures, because a lot of those I painted. And so I went through a whole stage of how could I make interesting textures in watercolor, and then like a whole page of it, and scan that in and digitize it so that I can then add those JPEG textures into my photos as different layers that then blended in with the photograph and created lots of texture in the photograph. So she's got lots of different projects and guest artists in here in this book, like buildings and different examples of the buildings. So it's more of it's got projects in it, but it's not like a complete breakdown like some of the others, showing you like basic shapes and here's the basic layout and some details, and then like a big finished piece of the original. So I wouldn't say it's like a step-by-step book, but it is still very inspiring to be like, ooh, what is this? And what are the different things that I can consider and what went into that without really going step by step. So it's more of just inspiration at looking at photos that are inspiration. Sometimes I get inspiration from a color palette. With this, I was looking back here at the texture and saying, okay, how can I recreate that texture, and then scan it in and use it in my photos. So this is just a lovely how the different colored backgrounds affects, you know, your piece that you're creating a mood, and how that affects the overall painting. So it's a good inspiration book, but it's not a good, in my mind, step-by-step book. I mean, it could be if you're more advanced, but just in case you're kind of considering this book, that is a little flip through of that one. I liked the texture part of this when I had bought it years ago. This is a book by Danielle Donaldson, and if you've never seen her little classes, they're so delightful. Creative Girl, Mixed Media Techniques for an Artful Life. So this is a book that came out several years ago. She did a bunch of classes for the Jean Oliver Network. And then she also has like her own website where she still does classes. And everything that she does is a whimsical watercolor kind of feel to it. And I love this page of art supplies. So I just need to start practicing and breaking down art supplies for my own stuff and playing with that idea, because I want like a whole series of art supply paintings. I don't know why that's interested me lately, but it's been on my mind. But everything that she does is just delightful. And I think I saw something that she's doing this year, this 2025, when I'm filming this, January 2025. So whenever you watch it, could be years down the line, but I think this year she's doing like a dollhouse, and you're decorating the dollhouse, and how delightful does that sound? And she's got a very specific way of drawing where she varies the pressure of her pencil that she's working with, so the lines are very not even, and the pressure is not even, and then she comes back in and she adds in some depth and darkness on parts of the lines to give them a very whimsical kind of look. So she's got a very specific way of drawing and then of painting. And then lots of like little creative challenges in here, and then lots of patterns and lovely ways to create. So this is another one where you could work your way through the different projects and work your way up to some whimsical, lovely watercolor pieces. Like, look how lovely that is. I love that. Layering goodness. So different things you work your way through in this book, but everything that she does is just delightful. So I'd highly recommend her book. I love this right here, this texture with the drawing on top of it, the doodling on top of it, and this right here with the trees and the funky house. Whoa! Can't you see doing like a whole little series of the fun little funky houses and stuff with different trees? I could totally see that. Adding depth and light. So just a whole bunch of fun and quirky ideas in here. It's a good way to work your way through some inspiration. Her classes are delightful. She's got a lot of them. Some of them are on the Jean Oliver Network. Some of them are on her own website. But I liked her way of creating, and she's very whimsical in her art. And different style than I create, but still just lovely. And then, you know, cut it out and make like a little fussy cut of a pattern, like a little paper doll. How cool is that? So that's the Creative Girl part of this back here. But look how lovely and creative these are. I mean, I wish now this was my style and I created exactly like that. I love so many things. I love all the things. And then creative repurposing, so cutting stuff up and using it in a different way, which you know I'm all about that. Patchwork panels, so it's definitely fun projects. This is delightful. I love this. Lots of fun stuff in this. Making your own cards. Lovely, lovely book. So, Creative Girl, Mixed Media Techniques for an Artful Life. That's a delightful book. And then this one I just got after working my way through most of the creative abstract watercolor. This is a brand new book, and it is like a little continuation of the other books. So you could very easily start in one in a handmade art journal and work your way through all the different projects in there. And then this book could be like a nice continuation of more ideas for your book. It's got different textures and designs and fun projects in here to do, and so it's just delightful and a fun continuation of your watercolor mindful practice. Just more ideas for you to work with. $12 21 projects divided into 7 sets of 3. So you've got some patterns and botanicals and seasonal. She goes through, of course, the basics like everybody does. And then this one I did something similar in the Artful Holidays, just being inspired by the ornaments. And she's got pencil drawings if you need a pencil drawing to help you out there. And then fall inspiration, mushrooms, leaves, more like petals and leaves. And she does kind of give you too the step-by-step breakdown of how you create that finished piece, which I like. Because then if you're like, well, how did you do that and what steps do you take to get there? Well, now you can see the steps that she took to get to the different levels of that piece. So I love the breakdown on some of these books. Some books definitely do a way better job of the breakdown than others. Others is more inspiration. Look at the fish. More inspiration in looking at it and be inspired by the overall piece of art. And then some of these break it down lovely so you could practice and play in your own book creating it. So I like this bright kind of folk art look here. So this is another one right along with that creative watercolor one that I do love for the steps and the exercises and working in a journal where you're already doing some creative, mindful watercolor practice. This is an excellent one to continue that. I love this thing here. You could do this with any set of colors, and you can even make it like a color palette challenge kind of thing rather than could be a color chart. It could be just the 4 colors and all the ways that you can mix and combine. I just love this. And these are excellent for like hand control, brush control, really learning how to manipulate the watercolor and the brush in a way that you'll be able to take that skill forward. So a lot of these are skill building exercises. So that's a fun book. And then the last one I've got in this little set, these were all artist books that I was showing off. Watercolor with Me in the Forest. And I saw this at the art store and I just thought, oh, that's delightful. And I don't know that I'll ever do it, but I just thought it was delightful. So if you wanted to see what the inside of this book had in it, that's what we're going to take a look. And maybe I'll do it. And I might have been attracted by that floral piece right there. For some reason, the watercolor florals I just love. I love that right there. So I might have picked it up and thought, ooh, pretty florals. Sometimes I look back on my bookcase. So this has different projects that you can paint along with her on watercolor paper. This is really nice thick watercolor paper and you can paint that right here. It's already got the line drawing on it for you. And you can work with the different projects in the book next to the project page. So I like that a lot about this too, because now you're just right here working it right next to the actual piece. A fern, a ladybug, just fun stuff. You don't have to figure out how to draw it because you've got your drawing right there. So just a fun skill building, work right in the book kind of exercise. So I love that. I did think that was very creative. Mushrooms, a cabin, wet on wet, so it gives you some techniques, and then a chickadee. Look at the chickadee, the feathers. I think feathers are lovely. Maple leaf, snail. So it does go through, like this is wet on wet, tells you at the bottom what skill you're kind of working on. These were wet on dry. And then as we keep going, I'm sure we'll get into, look at those flowers. I'm sure I picked this up for the flower ones. Leaves, because that right there is beautiful. And it gives you the colors, it tells you the brush sizes, and gives you a little bit of a how-to. Now, what I don't like versus the other books is it tells you how to layer these, but if you're not seeing them layer each element, you know, like in a video or in a little series of pictures, is it going to be the same? Maybe not. maybe so. It really depends on your skill level and if you've done any painting at all. So I would think this would need to be, maybe you have a little bit of experience and you're wanting to kind of jump into this style of thing and paint with her. But it's not as step-by-step as some of the other books that we have looked at. The daisies, super fun, but it is breaking it down for you for the most part. But it's not as instructional as the ones that really break it down in a series of pictures. So just a little FYI in there. And we've got some more animals, and again the painting fur, so you're getting into like different areas here. Ink and wash, so maybe you're inking something and painting it, so different sections there. So this is fun if you want to paint in the book, get the ideas, kind of have a little bit of instruction, but maybe not step by step. So that's Watercolor with Me in the Forest with Dana Fox. So I hope you enjoyed this little selection of some artist books and different techniques and ones that you could actually work through and get some really good work in your sketchbook or your art journal when you were done. So I hope you loved this little selection of watercolor books on my bookshelf, and I'll see you guys next time.